hearing to start, and then we've got the regular meeting. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of this meeting. I think that would be good. Start the whole thing with the Pledge of Allegiance. You might notice at the 9 o'clock agenda. You guys seen the agendas?
Yeah.
Okay. The one doesn't mention a Pledge of Allegiance. Anyway, so we're gonna put that. That's that. Anyway, so we're gonna put that at the beginning of the. Please rise and join me in a pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning. Moines County Board of Supervisors, Tuesday, August 9th, 2024. If you have questions why we have two agendas, in House File 718, it requires that you have the public hearing on the mailing that went out, the proposed property tax levy. You have to have a public hearing on that before you can set the date for the public hearing on the 24-25 budget. So what most counties are doing, they're holding one meeting a few minutes before the second meeting, and the state says that fulfills that requirement. So with that out of the way, to an agenda, I'm going to have a public hearing on a proposed property tax levy. If I can take a moment for that. A lot of people, well, everybody, got a school, county, and city budget year statement to owners and taxpayers as required by Iowa Code 24.2A. So this is mine. Everybody got one of these. This is a brand new form or mailing that the state wants sent out. And I personally think it's more than a little confusing. But that said, I would entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
Tom Broker?
Yes. So this is a public hearing. There's no vote involved. Anybody from the public, or if anyone would like to call in or email the Board of Supervisors with questions, you can email the Board of Supervisors at boarddmcounty.com. That's BOARD@dmcounty.com. Or you can call 319-753-8203, extension 4. That's 319-753-8203, extension 4. So, and I see several people here. If you would, if you have any comments or questions to make, if you would please stand up, give your name and address for the record, and you will be recognized. Are there any comments regarding the mailing?
Yeah, I agree with you, it's confusing. My name's Jim Holcamp and I live in Tama Township. So would somebody go over what this means here, total value, and then the taxable, and, in other words, I'm confused, would you explain it to me?
I was confused the first time I saw it too. It makes an assumption. But if you got your, in front of you, okay, at the top, there's 3 tables there. One for the school district, one for the county, and one for the city, if you live in a city, in an incorporated city. Burlington, West Burlington, Minneapolis, Danville, or Middletown. So the first one is the school district. And by current property tax, that means that's how much money in dollars. Has he got something different?
He's got a tax bill.
Oh, you've got a tax
He's got his personal tax bill.
from last year?
Well, yeah, it covers last year, but I think it was due this year. It says for September 2022 and March 23.
Okay, the taxes for, right now, we're working on the 2025 budget, and that starts on July 1st, 2024. That runs through June 30th, 2025, and you'll pay taxes. The first half of your taxes will be due September of 2024, and the second half will be due March of 2025, a year from now.
Do you have a copy of the paper you're talking about?
Right there.
Oh,
Well, it's part of it. It's our.
And there's some other people, do you have the same questions about what all this?
Not the same questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, okay, I'm gonna go through this, if you wanna give that gentleman one in the back. Just so everybody's talking about apples and oranges, I'll go through how they've,
Sure. You guys want one? Sure. We have plenty. Anybody else?
okay, so on the front page of that, up at the top, it says school, county, and city budget year statement to owners and taxpayers as required by Iowa Code 24.2A. There are three tables there. The first one, at the top, it'll say your school district. My school district is Burlington. Down below that, and you might have to be in a different school district. Anyway, and then it'll give what date the school public hearing is, and where it is, and contact information for that entity, for the school,
Yeah.
the school district that you're in. Anyway, and so then, and down below it, okay, so it's got all school funds. So it's got current property tax, like current,
Not on that one.
like, current, they mean the fiscal year we're in that started July 1st, 2023, and will end July, or June 30th, 2024. So that's what, so currently, they are collecting $14,105,349 is the number I have. But anyway, that's the number they're collecting right now for this current year. The current tax rate, mine says $12.37. Then there, the last two are the proposed property tax. That's how much their proposed tax levy will bring in with an increased tax base. In other words, the tax base typically rises, so if you levy $1 and the tax base goes up 2%, you're gonna bring in an extra 2% or
So there's
additional
kind of a
2%.
formula for inflation?
Well, I'll get to that. Anyway, and so the proposed tax rate is $12.25.
And that's per $1,000 of value?
That's per $1,000 of value, correct. And the effective tax rate is if they were going to collect the same amount of property tax dollars as they did last year, what would their tax rate be? So if they were gonna collect the same $14,105,000, their tax rate would be $11.90 instead of $12.25. And so that's the same on each of the entities there, is the current property tax, is the amount they are scheduled to receive this current year, from now till the end of June 2024. And the current tax rate, and it's got the proposed property tax dollars they're gonna collect and the proposed tax rate. That is what the budget currently shows, and the paper you're looking at, that is the proposed levy rate and the proposed dollars that will bring in. And the effective tax rate is what the tax rate would be if we were going to go use the same amount of dollars as we did the previous year. If you don't live in an incorporated city, then you won't have any information at the city at the bottom. If you go to the second page,
I didn't bring copies of
but
this.
no, anyway, well,
Everybody's-
and it's not, it's confusing. It shows for whatever tax district you're in. Every part of the county, like, you and I might be in the same city and county, but you might be in a different tax district. You might, there's parts of, West Burlington that are in the Burlington School District, and I believe vice versa. So anyway, so there'll be a different district for every one of those, you know, who your, school is, who your, city is, and it's always gonna be county. And then they'll break that down in further. The cities will have TIF districts. And there's some number of those. So if you're in one of those TIF districts, it will give you a number. That shows the percentage of your tax dollars that are going to each of those entities. I don't think it's particularly useful. I'm not in the legislature or the Department of Management, but it's there. It might be a little more useful if you could see county-wide where it goes, or at least district-wide without throwing in the TIF districts, but neither. Then what's really confusing is if you get down, and it shows there, everything up to this point has said that there's going to be more tax dollars collected. Then if you go to the, down below, it says, that examples show how taxes on a property with a value of $100,000, you know, compare the current to the proposed budget years. That shows everybody's taxes is gonna go down about 15 or 16%, which is silly. Where that comes from is, you mentioned the inflation adjustment. The Code of Iowa limits the growth of a residential class of property taxes and agricultural to 3% statewide. The important word there is statewide. So you might remember about a little over a year ago, you would have got a tax assessment on your house, and it probably went up. Some of it went up a lot, some of it didn't go up much. But it averaged that residential property taxes, property tax assessments, residential tax assessments, went up 11% countywide. But they went up 23% statewide. So they have to adjust a rollback to bring 23% down, a 23% increase down to a 3% increase. The inflation adjustment they use is called a rollback. Your assessed value is not your taxable value. Your assessed value, or your taxable value, is your assessed value multiplied by the rollback. Last year, or the current fiscal year, the rollback was 54.65. So in other words, if you had a $100,000 house, you would pay your tax for $54,650 of it. That rollback went down quite a ways so that they could bring the average 23% down to a 3% increase. So they dropped that to 46.34, I think, percent for the rollback. So if you had a $100,000 piece of property, you would multiply that for fiscal 25 times 0.4634. That means you would be paying, you would be taxed for $46,340. So your taxable value is going down quite a bit. So what they've done there is they just assumed everybody's, and if it doesn't make sense, because if everybody's property went up 11%, that $100,000 property is now worth $111,000. So if they were going to be honest about that, we'd if we were going to look at, say, look, that property is now $111,000, you would multiply that times the 0.4634. That equals $51,440. So that's a 6% decrease. So the average, and I stress average, residential property in Des Moines County, the taxable value went down about 6%. So it looks like most of the levies stayed similar. So very possibly your taxes could go down. Each assessment's different, and it certainly doesn't hold true for commercial or industrial. Their taxes went the other, their valuations went the other way. So when it says that your taxes are gonna go down there, that's misleading. They shouldn't have compared it to the $100,000. It should have been compared to that there was an increase there, but it doesn't show that. And then when it says the commercial property went down 15%, theirs is not going down, or most of them, because that's the first $100,000. Commercial property gets their first $150,000 of property at the residential rollback. Residential rollback. I'm not the greatest communicator in the world, as you know. Anyway, but after $150,000, everything else is at 90% that it's been. So, and where residential property went down, or went up just 11%, I don't have the exact numbers, and Matt isn't here. Commercial property went up by 12–13%, but when most of the assessor's values come from looking at sales ratios. And
Comparative
They
sales,
compare,
you mean?
well, yeah, so, and residential, there's a lot of transactions, so it would be statistically significant. Not so for commercial, but it's the way the state operates, or the law. So they started out with a 12 or 13% increase or something like that. The state comes back with an equalization order and says, okay, it went up by, let's say 13%, add another 13% to it across the board. So most of their taxes are gonna go up, some of them sharply. And it's really misleading for somebody that's gonna look at that and say that my business, the taxes are gonna go down, because a great number of businesses are valued at more than $150,000. And I think that's really misleading. I hope it isn't what the legislature intended, and I suspect it was, and I assume this was the Department of Management or somebody in that bureaucracy that came up with this particular form. But, and I've heard, you know, I'm quite honestly surprised there aren't more people here, because it's as confusing a public notice as I've ever seen. So, and I apologize for that, but this is it.
So they raised the evaluation by a comparative, you know, of sales. They look at sales of comparative property.
That's it. Getting outside my field of expertise here, but it would be easier for houses. You can say, okay, you've got a ranch home, 1,500 square feet, you know, and they can pretty much look at that. You've got a 6-bedroom house with, you know, and they can look at sales ratio. It said you had 35 of these sold this year. They're going it. So they compare sales ratios, and then when they estimate your house, they'll go by square foot, I think number of bathrooms, all sorts of those things. So,
And going off of the properties, kind of like that.
properties,
So-
and then they'll look at, you know, and then they'll look at your neighborhood. If several properties or properties in your neighborhood have sold, and they've sold higher and lower, that gets thrown into the mix too. Like I said, we're well outside the range of my expertise now, but anyway, so they come up, and the assessor's job is to come up with the market value. And everybody disagrees on this, and that's fine. So if they say your house is worth $100,000, you can say, I know damn well it isn't worth $100,000. I would be lucky to get 90,000 for it, or 85. And you can go to the board review and you can appeal that. Sometimes you have, sometimes
That is where the
without.
assessed value, that's what they're saying.
That's the assessed value.
They believe the current value.
That's what they believe, the actual value, the actual market value, and then they will multiply that times
By
the
the
rollback, by the rollback, and for this year, that's
So
46.
does this rollback tend to go down every year because of the?
Well, it's bounced around, somewhere around 55% for the last few years.
Oh.
This is the biggest move I've ever seen it make, but like I said, statewide, the average increase statewide was 23% increase.
Right.
So, and they can't, that statewide average cannot increase more than 3%, so they had to really step on the rollback.
So that's gonna probably tend to push the rollback down over time quite a bit.
Well, and I don't know, I would guess it would start coming back up slowly, because they're gonna let it grow 3%. They're not just, that property values is not gonna be able to grow like that regularly. So I would assume that it would start coming back up, because now it's gonna, next year, if nothing changed, they would adjust that rollback so that so that the statewide average could grow that 3%.
So is rollback on my bill somewhere?
Well, on your bill, probably not. Probably, aha!
Here's the burden.
Here's the bird, anyway, so
I think you've done a masterful job explaining it so far. So I was just, wanted to be here in case you had any other questions.
Okay, that's fine, and then, let me throw an advertisement in for Matt, and I've known that a long time. Not really an advertisement, and everybody, I would hate to be the assessor, I don't mind hassling once in a while, but to be the county engineer, or the sheriff, or the treasurer, or the assessor, I would not care for that, or the county attorney. But, his job is to find a market value for everything. There are assessors across the state that don't like to get nasty phone calls. So what they do is they just leave all the assessments the same. The state looks at the sales ratio, and they said, here's an equalization order, raise everything by 15% across the board. I mean, everybody gets that, whether, and obviously some properties might increase in value a little faster, or decrease in a little value, and everything just goes like that. And you aren't supposed to do it like that, and Matt stands up to the occasional butt chewing and does his job. Anyway, so I'll that was
I'll
just
be
an
honest with you, I have no
editorial.
idea what my property's worth until it sells.
Well, and that's, I'm not arguing, that's what you argue with Matt.
Yeah, trying to predict the future of market value, basically, or the current market value.
Okay, well, thank you, Tom.
I hope so. You have some- Yeah, just please, and give us your name and address for the record, please.
I'll try to be, it may not be real quick, but I'm glad that I'm a residential property owner, not a commercial or industrial.
Yeah.
My name is Greg Mangold, and I live at 2216 Seneca Street. And I'm here to talk about, on a larger level, and a better understanding of how the dollars collected that's projected equates to what you just concluded with your department heads regarding the amount of property tax that will be needed to operate for the forthcoming budget year, and how that corresponds to the dollar amount in aggregate that's scheduled to be collected on the form that we receive. I noticed that the tax rate stays the same from year to year, but due to assessed valuation, that rate in dollars collected, as you know, has happily, for operating purposes, has increased. My question is, what can be done, if anything, you notice that on this chart, that there is, on the left-hand side is the tax rate, or the mill rate per thousand of evaluation. And on the right side is the actual tax levy in dollars that are received. The blue line going across is the tax rate that's stayed the same for the last 3 years. However, because of my understanding that the assessed valuation that rate applies to has increased, that produces a trend line in orange that has gone up for the last 2 years and proposed for the third year. So for the proposed budget coming up, 13,316,000. If we could just ring out for a while the impact of assessed valuation, how does that 13 million plus 300,000, how does that compare to the operating revenue through property tax that will be needed for 24, 25, after the department heads have come in and showed their expenditures minus, their non-property tax revenue, there's an amount that's left, and that's coming from the property tax, in a simple way. So I guess I'm getting at is that 13,300,000, is that derived from the calculations from the department heads, meetings you had with them? Or is it a more simple, taking that tax rate times the assessed valuation? And you have maybe a cushion, some critics would say that's a cushion. So it's on a larger level. My taxes are gonna, on a personal level, I'm not dealing with that right now. It's gonna go down, thankfully, but it's on the larger level that I'm concerned about.
And I believe I can address that. Typically, you deal with, if the tax base grows more than you need, you lower the levy rate.
Yes.
Over the last 10 years, the Des Moines County's tax base, the assessed value or taxable value has increased 40%. We've reduced the tax rate by 20%, or the levy rate by 20% from 851 to 681. But it's interesting you brought this. In fiscal year 23-24, something interesting happened. And I know it says that, and this is exactly what you said, it's multiplying the taxable value times the tax rate. And in 2024, our taxable value jumped almost 10%.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still in court, but what happened, to make it quick, is Southeast Iowa Regional Medical Center. Their total value is, taxable value is somewhere around $202 million, which is just about 10% of our tax base.
Yeah, right.
So prior to that, they were being taxed on maybe $24 million. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Anyway, well, for whatever reason, they said, we're a nonprofit, and they said, we don't owe any tax. So when they got their tax assessment, they went to the board of review. And their board of reviews, correct me if I'm wrong, the board of review is people that know real estate. They can tell you what your house is worth or what your farm's worth or that sort of thing. This is a legal question, whether it's a nonprofit or not. So they threw their hands in the air and said it's all taxable. So the whole thing's on the tax base. And when the state looks at it, they said, this is how much you're getting. This is how much you're collecting. Well, they have an agreement with the court that they don't have to pay any taxes for the current year or until there's a decision, and there wouldn't be any penalty or interest to it. And I truly do not know, I am not an attorney, whether the nonprofit, how that works. I am familiar enough with budgets to know that if you budget, because that's gonna add up to, that would mean we would get an extra let's say 1.3 million that it shows us getting last year and this year. We might not get any of it. We might get a little bit of it, maybe it'll end up, I don't know. But you wanna be careful about budgeting revenue, especially that much revenue that you aren't gonna get. So that is not included in our calculations. So quite honestly, if our tax base would have gone up that much, we'd have cut the levy rate. And so maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but we would be foolish to say, we're gonna get this. So, and that's where we are now. So we've got a budget that we have created without that money. Is that clear? Does that
Yes, I
make
understand,
sense?
because it's in court, and you can't rely upon that, this valuation of the hospital times the tax rate to produce the revenue that you don't know about.
Right.
So unknowns like that, if, let's say, for example, the court says it's taxable, Does that, then the money that comes, since you based your budgets on that not happening, would that go into then building the fund balance and then perhaps be available for the ensuing year? Or it's too, maybe that's conjecture.
That would be exactly where it was, because right now we're using a little fund balance because we don't,
Yes, I know.
I suspect it's not gonna, I suspect that they aren't gonna say the whole thing is taxable.
Mhm.
Maybe they'll see none of it, I don't know. We can't. So yeah, if all of a sudden we had a windfall
Right.
in our budget, we would look at lowering the tax levy rate, although you don't wanna lower it too much, because if you say, okay, we've got fund balance, we won't, within the year after that,
Yeah.
you got it. So, yeah, and we would certainly look at that. And like I said, if our tax base had actually gone up 10% in that first jump you showed, our levy rate would have gone down. The counties, we've worked really hard. The people sitting around you have worked really hard to do something, and we're proud of how we've managed
Un-
over the years.
Undoubtedly, I've had the good fortune of working with dedicated public servants. I don't doubt that at all. I guess my final, thank you for that explanation. And this is something that none of us can deal with this in the room here. It would be, like to see property tax reform so that local units of government can focus on the dollar amount that's necessary for operations after the expenditures, proposed expenditures and revenues, non-property tax revenues, and focus on that, and then say, that's the amount, county auditor, we need from Des Moines County, that's the amount city of Burlington would say we need, county auditor, rather than having it being driven so much by, for some places, the assessed value. You could theoretically have this, on the system you have, keeping that rate the same, and there would be, some say with windfalls or cushions. And to try to equate that operating number to what's levied, rather than having it be fluctuating from assessed valuation. But that's a reform of the Iowa code.
Yeah, that's a reform of the legislature.
Yes,
That's-
and I understand that.
And they don't particularly care what we think.
Yes.
And I agree with you.
Yeah.
that
So,
something could be done.
yeah, if something could be done on a personal level to try to bend that trend line a little bit, in terms of either looking at your internal expenditures or outside revenues, just from a citizen's perspective, that would be great, setting aside the assessed valuation variable. That's,
We play the hand we're dealt.
I understand, and it'd be nice if that hand, if the cards could change a little bit by the Iowa code and have it, be a little bit rearranged, so that the emphasis is on giving units of government their control over their fiscal destiny, rather than wondering what the assessed valuation is going to be. Not here necessarily, but maybe across the state. Thank you. Oh, now, did you say the budget hearing is going to be shortly after?
Budget hearing, well, no, we're gonna set the date for the budget hearing.
Oh, good.
In the next meeting, I think it's April 30th.
Oh, okay, I understand.
April 30th.
I
And
understand.
it'll be similar, only that will be the final hearing. Once it's approved, then we send it to the state and it's certified, but it's all but certified now. It's been,
I know there's a summary of the budget, so is there do you have a budget document actually online to look at, that's by department?
Mr. Mandel, the young lady sitting next to you is the budget director,
Okay,
It'll be
or
posted
Cheryl
Friday.
McVeigh.
okay.
So I think she can help you with that.
Okay. I'll look to her for assistance. Thank you, that ends my comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, we haven't had any calls or emails?
I have received nothing in the auditor's office as well.
Okay.
Move we go out of close, or out of, public hearing.
Second.
Sarah,
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane Campbell.
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
With an I, we're adjourned. My apologies to everybody. I know just exactly how much fun it is to listen to me.
You did.
I rather enjoyed that.
I enjoyed it too.
I've already lost the second agenda.
Here.
I'm feeling bad about losing it. I kinda gotta find it.
Take mine, Thomas.
I'm trying to give him mine too.
I found it. Okay.
I figured if I didn't find it, I could go.
Okay. Are there any changes to the tentative agenda? We have one, I believe. Go ahead, Joe.
Scratch, resolution, 2024-023, that'd be item D. We gotta make some more
Okay.
phone calls.
Thank you. Is that the only change? We have an agenda. Okay, meet with department heads, elected officials. Sarah Doty, Moines County Auditor.
Good morning. Spring cleanup started yesterday, so county rural cleanup through June 8th, so, get your stuff cleaned up. Other than that, nothing, just business as usual.
Colin Gerst, IT.
Just keeping busy like always, doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff upstairs, but other than that, nothing to report.
Thank you. Sheriff Kevin Glendenning.
Good morning. Had an eventful week. Saturday, the Bob Lanier Memorial side-by-side ride took place, and they raised money for all area canine units, all 5 in Des Moines County, and then in Louisa County, they raised right around $12,000. There was preliminary numbers, and I think they're going to divvy that up by teams, so like $2,000 per team, which is extremely appreciated. That will go to good use of our annual costs, and then building for the future, for future purchases. So the community support for the canine units in our area has just been instrumental in making all of this happen. So greatly appreciate that.
Might have to split that with Hank. I think it's his personal charisma.
He gets food and treats out of that, and that's where that all comes from. The exercise that we had here at the courthouse went really well, thanks to Rodney, and, well, Rodney's not here, so, but thanks to Rodney, and he obviously makes all that happen as the chair of that committee, and a lot of good lessons learned, and I think we're always more prepared for the future with that, so keep building on that. And today, the Iowa Attorney General is gonna be over at our office, just giving some advice, direction. We're gonna have area law enforcement. I think a couple people from Lisa's office are gonna come over and just hear what they have to say, and give us some legal updates and direction on certain kinds of cases. So looking forward to that training. The jail's at 92. And I think we're like 14 out of county, but we have a backlog of about 11 inmates that need to go to the state or the halfway house. At least 3 are going out tomorrow, so hopefully we can build on that, but we've got a list of them again, so we'll keep working on that.
You've been busy over the weekend, I know that.
Yeah, they're just always busy. We got a proactive group countywide, so.
That's good. That still bothers me, them 11 people that were holding after they've been convicted, we still have to pay the $50 a day to keep them when they are state property.
Yeah, it doesn't help our list any.
No.
The prison's been really good lately about getting them in to Oakdale, get them classified. But right now that list is at 6, but 3 that were on the list over the build-up over the last week are going tomorrow. So they got those scheduled pretty quick, and then 3 more got added yesterday after court. So that's where 6 of them come from, and then there's 5 that are waiting on the halfway house. And the long-term on that is looking a little bit difficult. They're telling us it could be a month or better, especially on female beds. We've waited quite a while for those. So it's out of our hands, as we discussed earlier on the taxes. It's a legislation issue, and there's no reimbursement required unless it's a parole conviction. We get reimbursed for paroles, but not if they're waiting to go to the halfway house or to Britain.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Kevin. Matt Warner, Moines County Assessor. Did you just come down here to see I didn't throw you under the bus?
No, just in case there's any questions. I think he did a great job explaining.
He was hiding around the corner here.
Yeah, so our 2024 assessment notices went out last week. The month of April is basically a time frame to appeal your value if you feel like it's out of line, doesn't reflect market value. Until the 25th of April, you could ask for an informal review of your property from our office. We can take a look at it, see if there's anything we can do value-wise. If not, the board review petitions are taken until April 30th of this month. So basically, the only assessments that went out for 2024, property values that changed up or down, a lot less than last year. We didn't do an across-the-board reassessment this year. Mainly properties that added something or deleted something were the properties that changed this year. So we went from sending about 17,000 letters out to about 1,600 letters. So not as many changes this year, but every April is still your time frame to appeal your value with our office. So just wanted to mention that.
Thanks, Matt. Krista Pogar, Local Health.
Good morning. We're keeping busy. The new public health building is coming along nicely. I drove by yesterday and it has changed so much. The weather's been good to us, so good progress being made.
Won't be long before you can go in there and wave your arms around. I want that there.
Yeah. It'd be nice. It's moving along nicely.
Thanks, Krista. Jared Lasser, Land Use.
Morning, just keeping busy as usual. We have a subdivision that should be ready next week, minor subdivision, and then there was that standard subdivision that went to the zoning commission last month that just because of scheduling with the city of Burlington's council schedule, just didn't work out right there. So that one will be probably the following week. That's a preliminary plat, so apart from that, I don't have anything else. Probably we'll have another subdivision or two here within the next month, but nothing at the moment, so that's it.
Thanks, Jared. Sherman Fay Budget Director, do you have anything, or you're just in here to keep, if I screwed up?
You did great. I'm glad you did talk. I just wanted to say, if anybody did not receive the letter for the mailing, we have received a handful of those back. So if you didn't get your letter, you're not gonna get your tax bill, so, contact our office if you have a change of address, so we can get that updated. So we're trying to find new addresses. The assessor's office has offered to help with that, so hopefully we'll get, some new addresses on there. And our software provider decided to drop the attention line. So a lot of them are being returned that should be going to like Eminent Bank or somewhere, so.
Tyler Glitch.
They just took it on themselves to delete that, so.
Initiative.
Next year, hopefully it'll be better.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thanks.
Ken Hyman, Mental Health Agency of Southeast Iowa.
Good morning. Tomorrow will be the Mahassey monthly meetings. We're gonna hear about legislative updates on House File 2673, the behavioral health bill, and then the new Senate bill, Senate File 2420. So hopefully Ryan will enlighten us, and maybe Sarah that's on the Legislative Review Committee, they can tell us what they've heard about those two bills. Nothing's gone through of those two new ones that I've heard yet, so. Otherwise, we've had regional planning. They'll be going over the scoring of the RFP for the Ursh home at the meetings tomorrow, so that'll be interesting. We had 3 excellent people who submitted to the RFP for the Ursh home, and that, we have an Ursh home here in Burlington. We're probably gonna get one over in Ottumwa area or somewhere on that side of the region. And so we'll hear more about that tomorrow too, so looking forward to the meetings. That's about all I've got.
Thanks, Ken. Natalie Steffner, Des Moines County Recorder.
Good morning. Just business as usual. No new updates.
Thank you. Shannon Prado, Emergency Management.
So we have some new emergency response guidebooks that are coming out this year from the state. So those will be distributed to us, within the coming months, but you can, access that online if you ever need that. As Kevin said, we had the exercise last week, and I do think that went really well. It was nice to see everybody work together. And then thankfully, nothing exciting is happening in the emergency management world, so I'm working on updating some plans. Every year we have to update 20% of our emergency plans, so just getting a head start on that.
Good, no news is good news.
Yes, it's a great thing in my world.
Thanks, Shannon. Lisa Schaefer, Des Moines County Attorney.
Continued controlled chaos.
You don't ever have a week without news, or a day.
It's the same stuff, it's just the weather's warming up, so it'll get busier.
Thank you.
I know one of our cases apparently made Jimmy Kimmel, so.
Oh, no.
But that in and of itself will make life difficult for people.
Kevin's over there just grinning because he keeps.
Pardon?
Kevin's just grinning because he keeps pumping.
I
them
wasn't
people
one of
big.
his cases, so.
I'm not gonna follow that up. I'll leave that. Thanks, Lisa. Brian Carter, Des Moines County Engineer.
Well, we didn't make Jimmy Kimmel, but the weather's
Thank
warming
God.
up, so we're getting busy too. Yeah, Golf Course Road closed yesterday. Sent out some letters, sent out a press release. No matter what we do, I guarantee you we miss somebody. So I'm sure somebody got surprised last night or this morning, but should be actually working on site today. Yesterday just got the road closed and moved some equipment in the evening. So I would think that maybe start doing pavement removals today. So that's off and going. It's good timing for it, to be honest with you. The arbor bridges have not started. Even the farmers aren't really in the field yet, full scale, so it's good time to get it going and head towards finishing that up. So I figure about 5 weeks, give or take. Weather will be a big factor in that, so.
Okay, the important part, can you still get into the golf course?
You just have to go a different direction.
Oh, that's really.
Yeah, the golf course is wide open, just
You
don't
don't
go
have
that
time to
way.
go golf.
Good point, Lisa.
You don't have time to go golf.
I'd recommend Irish Ridge if you wanna go to the golf course at the moment, so. A couple weeks ago, it's been longer than that, I mentioned that the railroad was looking at closing the crossings on Spring Lake Road and Sullivan Slough Road, south of Burlington. I reached out to them and mentioned that those were both dead-end roads with no other access. And they went back to the drawing board. To their credit, they didn't have to. Now they're talking about closures again. I gotta follow up on this, so I'll hopefully give you an update next week. They were gonna look at trying to do it with their own crew so that they could put a little, like a kind of a little one-lane gravel runaround in so that traffic could get around while they were doing the crossing, because they have to do the crossing all at once. So I'm gonna follow up on that, but just as a heads up, we just received an email this morning that they're looking at that on the 18th and 19th of April. So I'll do some more information, possibly even send some letters to the residents on the other side of that so they can anticipate it. But that's coming back along. I'm assuming they're following through with what they talked about, but I have to check on that. We just got the email this morning, so I'll see what more I could find. It's, what, a week and a half out or 10 days out or something like that, so we'll chase that a little bit more. But, and that's a railroad project. We're just trying to make sure people are aware of the situation, so. And then they poured the caps on the little bridge and the bottoms there on that dead end road, dead end 160th. So, that's the end. Once they strip their forms, probably Friday, that'll be the end of the work for that contractor. And it'll all pretty much just sit there until our crew has more time. So, plenty of stuff going on, but that's what's going on. I think I told you last week, I met with the Danville City Council. I have not heard back from them, but I think they'll be a part of our asphalt job if I had to guess. That just depends on if they wanna spend the money or not, so. Beyond that, plenty of stuff going on.
Brian, you talked about the railroad. Last week, they had 145th on north of the tracks, or of the highway, and they had Jimtown both closed off.
I see they must be heading into Danville and some others too. We
Yeah,
haven't had
yeah.
any communication on any of those projects, so
So-
I see that they're doing work there, but we're not aware of anything.
And, they still got Jimtown closed off as of this morning.
Okay.
But, so I came back this morning, and I sit there, and the guy seen me coming, and he dropped his damn arms on 145th where I cut across. I sat there for 10 minutes with a school bus full of kids, waiting on them to do it. So I started honking my horn, and just like they honk their horn when they cross, I wanted to cross honking my horn. I had 2 vehicles behind me.
I wanna see you try to, it's not legal, I know, I wanna see you try to weave through those with a bus.
I'd never do that, but I just about, if I had a tire thumper, I might have grabbed it and went over and talked to the guy. But they need
You can get to the local level, our railroad folks are really good to work with, but when you get to a much higher level,
Yeah.
they live in their own world and,
boy, they sure do.
so I will say this, I've reached out to what I'd call the local guys and particularly on these 2 things, but even on that kind of stuff, and they're really good to communicate with. But I didn't even receive notification about those that you're talking about,
Yeah.
so it's kind of sometimes the random nature of the railroad, so. But
Enough said.
enough
Thank
said,
you.
mad bus drivers in the railroad.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep, thank you.
Did either of you have any correspondence?
I have,
No, I got Rodney up here, I don't know if he has anything to,
Oh,
kind of input or.
sorry, Rodney, I didn't. Rodney Gleason, maintenance.
That's all right. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
We can.
I just got a couple things. First off, as they've already touched on before, we had our active threat exercise last week. First off, I want to thank the board for allowing us to shut the courthouse down to do that exercise. Also, Shannon kind of took point on that for me. I really appreciate that. Kind of got all the entities and everybody together and run the meeting, so I really appreciate her help. Also, Angie Vaughn with Joint Safety, Kevin and his staff there at the Sheriff's Office, the Burlington Police Department, Burlington Fire and Ambulance, West Burlington Police Department, and DESCOM. So it's kind of seems like a short little exercise, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with a bunch of entities to put that exercise on. So we really appreciate everybody's help in doing that. Not only helps all the county employees and state employees there at the courthouse, but also all those entities that responds to those events. It's good training exercise for them. Got some good stuff out of it, and as always when you do an exercise you find things you got to work on. So we'll be doing that. We have another meeting coming up this week to kind of debrief and go over what those things were. So just want to thank all them. The other thing I have is the Tiger Grant project. I believe they're going to be finishing up the last pour on the south corner lot there at the courthouse. That should be the last of it, so they should be up and out of there by the end of the week, is what they're telling me. So hopefully that's all done and we can get back to somewhat of a normal area down there again. Other than that, just keep them busy as usual. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Okay, did you have any correspondence? I did not. Did you not? Okay, proceed to discussion and vote. We have a resolution 2024-21. Set the time and date for the fiscal 25 budget hearing. Be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors hereby fixes the time and place for a public hearing on the fiscal 25 budget estimate for Tuesday, April 30th, 2024 at 9 a.m. in the boardroom at the Des Moines County Courthouse. The Des Moines County Budget Director is hereby directed to publish the notice and estimated summary as required by law. I would entertain a motion to approve that resolution.
Move to approve resolution 2024-2021.
Second. Sarah?
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yep.
Tom Broker?
Yes.
All up to you now, Sheriff.
Okay. We have a public hearing on proposal to enter into a general purpose loan agreement. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Or motion to open a public hearing. Sorry.
Sarah?
Shane Campbell.
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. I will read this into the record, or anybody wants to make any comments. Again, I don't know if there's anybody here, but anybody that would like to email the Board of Supervisors at board@dmcounty.com, that's BOARD@dmcounty.com, or call 319-753-8203, extension 4. That's 319-753-8203, extension 4, with any questions or comments on the proposal that I'm about to read, or the resolution I'm about to read. Whereas the board proposed to enter into a loan agreement, the loan agreement in a principal amount not to exceed $3,570,000 pursuant to the provisions of sections 331.402, 331.441, and 331.442 of the Code of Iowa for the purpose of A, undertaking information technology improvements for county buildings, $343,375, B, undertaking maintenance and repairs for county buildings, $150,000, C, acquiring peace officers' communications equipment, $73,000, acquiring insurance for county operations, $2,600,000, E, acquiring election system equipment, $100,000, F, acquiring and installing emergency communication systems equipment, $282,000, and G, equipping the county attorney's office facilities, $20,000. And pursuant to law and duly published notice of the proposed action, has held a hearing thereon on April 9th, 2024. And whereas the county intends to issue General Obligation County Purpose Notes Series 2024 in evidence of its obligations thereunder in the future, and anticipates that principal and/or interest will come due on the notes before July 1st, 2025. And whereas it is now necessary to make provision for the levy of a debt service property tax in the 2024-2025 fiscal year for the payment of such anticipated principal and interest. Now, therefore be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Des Moines County, Iowa as follows. Section 1. The board hereby determines to enter into the loan agreement in the future and orders the notes be issued at such times in evidence thereof. The board further declares that this resolution constitutes the additional action required by Section 384.24A of the Code of Iowa. Section 2. For the purpose of providing of the levy and collection of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the notes as the same became due, there is hereby ordered and levied on all taxable property in the county the following direct annual tax. For collection in the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024, sufficient to produce the maximum net annual sum of $3,554,832. Provided, however, that at the time the notes are issued, the actual tax levy amounts required to pay the principal of and interest on the notes in each year shall be determined based upon the interest rate or rates at which the notes are issued. And this resolution shall be supplemented by a resolution of the Board of Supervisors to provide for such actual and necessary tax levy amounts. Section 3. A certified copy of this resolution shall be filed with the county auditor, and the county auditor is hereby instructed to enter for collection and assess the tax hereby authorized. When annually entering such taxes for collection, the county auditor shall include the same as part of the tax levy for debt service fund purposes of the county. And when collected, the proceeds of the taxes shall be converted into the debt service fund of the county and set aside therein as a special account to be used solely and only for the payment of the principal of and interest on the notes hereby authorized, and for no other purposes whatsoever. Section 4. All resolutions or parts thereof in conflict herewith are hereby repealed to the extent of such conflict. Section 5. This resolution shall be in full force and effect immediately upon its adoption and approval as provided by law. So, is there any public comments? regarding that resolution. You received any written or email?
I have not received anything in the auditor's office.
See no comment, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So, close public hearing?
Second. Sarah?
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes. What? Oh, yeah, you're right. So now we've closed the public hearing. I got the cart ahead of the horse, in front of all the horses. Okay. Now it's time to entertain a motion to approve the resolution for the general obligation notes.
I move to approve resolution 2024-022.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell?
Yep.
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Tom Broker?
Yes.
Did you say 22?
22. It was resolution 2024.
2024-22.
23 was when we took off.
Yeah.
Been a long morning.
For you.
Okay. D, we have reports. We have the recorder's report of fees collected for March 2024. This report will be on file at the auditor's office and available for public review at your convenience. We have minutes for the regular meeting of April 2nd, 2024.
Move to approve the minutes for April 2nd, 2024.
Sarah?
Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes, please.
Tom Broker?
Yes. Is there any other business?
And I have none.
Future agenda items. Committee reports.
Colin and I attended the Zoom meeting with Southeast Iowa Crime Commission and the juvenile detention. And it pertains to security purposes on IT over in the Fairfield Crime Commission office and also down at the juvenile detention office. And we're asking for $1,000 per entity, which are 13 of us. 13 counties involved to do this IT, and they would like to have a 2080 agreement. And I think we need to talk to Lisa about that, write a 2080 agreement for that, for the IT, for our IT department. So that's something I think, Colin, you're gonna address with Lisa maybe down the line. Whipped that right on you, didn't we, Lisa?
I'm sorry, I was checking emails.
So, anyway, it's something that needs to be done, so I think you gentlemen are on board with it, I think, and that will be for fiscal year 2025.
Lisa's office says it's okay. Have a committee report sheet?
No, I don't.
I attended the county safety committee, and like everybody's mentioned, the active shooter drill we had Friday. I thank everybody, Shannon, Angie, law enforcement, first responders, the CERT team, and maintenance. It was one thing I thought, I noticed better is in the past when we've had those, it'd say it's gonna be at 2 o'clock. So at 2:01, the shots would ring out. Well, just where everybody just sort of sat down, was there. It took maybe 30 minutes or so, somewhere in the vicinity of 30 minutes, so, you know, sort of, like, got involved in what I was doing, and you're still expecting it, but anyway, I thought that was good, so you give everybody a chance just to settle down, and then it's 2 o'clock, and start heading for the hills.
I think one of the positive things was it gave people time to think in a situation, how they would react, how they would respond. On the downside is it gave them time to put some of those into motion, even though no incident had started yet. So when we were going around and checking doors, when Rodney and I were checking offices, just making sure everything was safe, everybody's prepared, there's already some barricading that was taking place. And the exercise had not started yet, so we had to talk through doors to make sure everybody was aware that we were about to start. So.
The board solved that problem a number of years ago. We always used the newest board member as a human shield.
So I got that going for me, which is nice.
Okay, public input. If anybody from the public has any comments, we'll give you one more chance for questions. You can email the Board of Supervisors at board@dmcounty.com, that's BOARD@dmcounty.com. Or call 319-753-8203, extension 4. That's 319-753-8203, extension 4, and we will give you a couple minutes to initiate that call or email. I don't think you can text that. Okay. Anybody here have any comments?
No comment, but I do want to say thank you for coming down. Appreciate, I always like to see people get involved in, when they have questions, to follow through with it. Sometimes they just get frustrated and, complain, but yeah, thanks for coming down. I hope you got everything that you needed. If you didn't, she will make sure that you get everything you need.
Thank you, Jim. And an aside, Tracy, I think you're a great reporter, but this is where Bob would throw in a couple smart aleck comments.
Yeah. So no pressure, but go ahead, Tracy.
You
We don't have to put the pressure on you.
He was probably nicer than I am.
Depends on kind of a mood you're playing in.
mean, so we'll just have
Well,
a
we still
good
got-
afternoon.
Still got part of Bob with us, so maybe you ought to take that down to the office.
To you guys, or maybe let's leave it here for a couple weeks.
Okay.
And we'll take it then.
What's that blue thing?
Did that come back
Beverage.
from?
That's
where
mine. Yeah, he brought that back for me. I just figured that's not gonna bother anybody. I'm gonna let it sit there for a while.
Is that alcoholic?
No, it's not alcoholic, but you can put booze in it, I believe.
Looks like it says Route 66 on
Yeah,
it.
it's like a different kind of soda.
We have a few artifacts from this recent Florida trip in our office as well. I have a bottled gecko in my desk, so.
You always had to travel with an extra suitcase to bring stuff back.
Yep, he always brought Tom back beaver buddies.
We have our coconuts back here. He brought me one of those when he came back a couple weeks ago.
And our honey pot's still there. I don't think,
That honey
who
pot.
brought that? Was that a?
Cahill.
Cahill brought that.
Cahill get that too.
We had honey.
It's a honey pot.
Here's- You guys weren't around Bob Cahill, Dan Cahill sat on this board. So anyway, when he was here when I came, anyway, so when he first got elected, and I won't never forget, he'd said, let's open this county honey pot. He thought there was a honey pot of money here. But he was disappointed. Okay, 2 minutes is up. With an aye, we're adjourned.
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned.
Jim,
Y'all have a
come
great
see
day.
you.
If you would like to see for next year,
Oh, that's-
hustle that.